Welcome back to part 2 of my video. In this part we're going to be talking about how to do some of the basing or base layer paints of the more intricate areas, the tunic or cape, whatever you want to call it. Putting base layers down on all the detail areas after the initial airbrush, which was in part 1. So here I'm going to go ahead and start with the Fiston Red, watered it down a little bit, and I'll work on the cape. This is a pretty easy part. Just water the paint down a little bit and then put, a few layers on each of these. And you start working your way around to all the little areas of the model. Start putting your base layers of your silvers, your blacks onto your weapon. I'll be using blue for the axe head, more gold areas, and a lot more of the details. So it's pretty much self-explanatory in this part. It's just how detailed you want to go. Here I kind of fast forward to the base layer of the tunic. I was trying not to put too much paint because there is going to be some gold and silver detail on here, and I'll be adding a weapon on there in the final part of this video after I do the axe bit and some of the fine highlightings, which will be in part 3. But here I just continue on with the base layer of the tunic. It's kind of painstakingly time-intensive part of the model. It's actually the longest part of this model. The airbrushing part actually ended up being the fastest part. And you just basically keep working at it, chipping away at it until you get about 3 layers in. Next part, I'll use a little bit of the black, Citadel black there to start going back over the weapon, the axe. It's supposed to be black with some silver or gunmetal type tones. It wasn't supposed to be gold, but here I came back to correct that, putting a base layer of black on there. Then I'll wash it, come back over it with its details areas. And finally I'll save the axe bit, which I'm going to highlight up, make it look pretty nice. That's going to be the part 3 video. So that's starting to come out pretty nice. Still got some work to do and touch up. We will be continuing on. This part is just really painstaking, and it takes a lot of time to get through it. Now moving on to the face. I'll start with a base layer of Kislev flesh, or one of the flesh tones. Doesn't really matter which one. The face is they've always given me a hard time. I've only done it once where it looked really good, so this one will be pretty simple. Just gonna put base layer flesh tone. I'll come back with a wash, then touch it up, and fine tune the details a little bit on the face. He's there, it's starting to come along. Now I'm going to start working on the ropes. I'm just going to use the gray sear and then come back with a wash on those. All the ropes are kind of this was a hard part of the model because you don't want to mess up and have to come back and touch up areas, which you'll always have to do. But Don't be dismayed if you have to come back with original colors and touch that up a little bit before you move on to the next area. I used corn red here on these little leather straps. This was a pretty easy part, and then I would just do a few layers of that, and then I'll throw a wash on those as well. Now I'm going ahead and put a wash on the face. Try to start getting those details to start popping out. As you can see, also I've started using some of the gold to touch up some of the gold areas on the weapon and try to clean those up a little bit. This part, depending how dark you want it, you might add a few extra layers, or you might let it dry and come back and throw another layer on of the wash. I kind of like mine to have a little darker details to it and then come back over it later on. This part was tricky. Trying to make those details come out on the weapon, the gold trim, some of the ornamental areas of the weapon. This was pretty slow because I didn't want to have to come back and correct anything that was a black area. So yeah, it was pretty tricky. So I really took my time on this part. Some of those fine little areas are very tricky. Here I was going back over with the base layer of the blue, which I'm going to have my foundation for the axe. Like I said earlier in the video, I'm going to have a whole part just for this detailing of this axe, which will be part 3. As you can see here, I did a little initial foundation of the base. I did actual basing material, and I did a first initial layer of the base itself. So I think so far, as you can see there, it's dried overnight, and everything is starting to come along pretty nice. I put a little wash on some of those areas, and stay tuned for part 3. Like and subscribe.